So welcome everybody. Thank you so much for joining the webinar today, hosted by Prianto and Netbrain. We're going to talk about how Netbrain can help healthcare organisations, give you some examples with our no-code automation platform. So let's get into it. If you have any questions throughout the webinar, there should be a question and answer tab on your top left-hand side. If you just pop them in there, we've got a specific section at the end for questions and answers, and we'll try and get those all covered. If we can't, we'll follow up afterwards and share all the questions and answers with everybody. Thank you. So let's get started first of all with the agenda. So we're going to do some brief introductions, and then we're going to talk about 4 of the core use cases that we see in healthcare across our customer base, starting with network mapping and visibility. So understanding what you don't know in your network, how we help to automate troubleshooting, ultimately trying to avoid disruption to patients and care offered to patients. Then we're going to talk about how to make protected changes, so ensuring they're accurate, successful, without any hiccups. And then we're going to talk about the importance of continuous network assessment, so helping to keep the hospitals, the healthcare organisations compliant, secure, and continually operational. Dave, then my colleague, who I'm going to introduce in a moment, is going to do a live demonstration, show you some of these examples, actually 4 of these exact examples. And then at the end, we've got some space to talk about some next steps. We have a prize draw, actually, an incentive, and actually one lucky attendee who watches the entire webinar today will win an Amazon gift card, and we'll share this via email afterwards. And then we'll wrap up at the end with question and answers. So again, just put your questions and answers if you think of them in the Q&A section on the top left of the screen, and we'll get to those at the end. So quick introductions. In the interest of time, I'll run through these. We're joined by Raj Mehta today. He is the sales director of Prianto, if you don't know him. I'm Liam. You can probably see from the picture, that's me. I'm one of the account executives at Netbrain. I've been here for around 2 years. I'm joined by Mark West. He heads up channel sales for Netbrain. And Dave Spence, who's one of our senior pre-sales engineers, who's going to be going through the demo today. So let's get started. And just as we begin, I'm going to hand over to Raj, and Raj is going to just briefly give you an overview of Prianto for those who don't know, and then we'll get into the use.
Great, thank you, Liam. For those of you who don't know Prianto, just thought I'd do a brief introduction. Prianto is a knowledge distributor. Been around for over 10 years. We have a global presence in 20 different countries. And core of what we do is we sell solutions with business outcomes. So we're not like a product-based distributor. But more importantly, we have vendor technologies that help open new opportunities and new doors. Next slide. So there are 4 pillars to what we do, and I'll just sort of briefly explain each of the pillars. So the first one is the modern workspace pillar, and this is all about addressing challenges in the modern workspace, all around sort of Microsoft solutions. What we're addressing is all about digital user experience, understanding performance, management, and security at the endpoint, really enhancing the whole Microsoft experience. The second area is the second pillar is around hybrid cloud and data center. These are all solutions to help with migrations to the cloud, but more importantly, optimization and simplifying operations across the hybrid cloud. This can include technologies like ITAM and ITSM, and also sustainability and ESG. The third pillar is cybersecurity, and this really encompasses endpoint security, network security, identity access and privilege access management, network detection and response, data governance and risk. So it's quite a comprehensive range of cybersecurity solutions. And last of all is AI and data analytics. And this is really all around automation using AI, how we can improve business efficiency. And really with a comprehensive set of tools how to overcome data challenges. So there's quite a good and depth breadth of vendors. Every single vendor we work with has something unique to say. So I'll hand back over to Liam, who will tell you the first of those technologies is Netbrain. Liam, back over to you.
Okay, thanks a lot, Raj. Great, so let's get into it. So Netbrain, if you've not come across Netbrain before, Netbrain is a network automation platform. We've been around for 20 years. We actually started with our founder and CEO, who still runs the company today, and he was a network engineer. And he started the company when he worked for Thomson Reuters, and he was trying to document the network, so building Visio maps basically of the network. So he went away and built a solution which became Netbrain to automate mapping and documentation. So that was the very first use case and where we came from. And then LP, our CEO, he sold this back to Thomson Reuters, and they became our first customer. So we were a network mapping and visibility solution to start with. And now, of course, we span the globe, and we have over 2,000 customers. We have some very large enterprises, but specifically for healthcare, we have lots of large healthcare organizations throughout the world actually leveraging Netbrain now for a number of years. We're a no-code automation platform. So let's dig into some of the use cases that we address and why that's important to healthcare organizations. So the first one is, we already touched on this, is mapping and visibility. And how do we do this? So we build what we call a digital twin of the network. So we understand at a number of different layers how your network is, how it fits together, how it communicates, how it's configured, and how it's intended to be designed to support the patients, right? So the services that you're delivering to patients, keeping things operational. So first of all, we discover devices. We get the information about all the network type devices. Think of this as switches, routers, firewalls, load balancers. It could be cloud instances, AWS, Azure. It could be Cisco ACI. It could be NSX. So all of the more modern technologies as well. So we build a picture and a map of this in a live representation of the network. And then we dig into more detail of the devices. So we get information like configurations, routing tables, MAC, ARP tables. We get all the information then about the flows across the network. So you can see a path from A to B across the network through all the different technologies. So we're supporting multiple vendors here. So we're not just looking at Cisco or Paolo. Pretty much every vendor in the marketplace over the 20 years we've added support for, and we easily add support. This is a regular day-to-day job for us. And then finally on top, we have what's called the intent layer, and we'll go into this in more detail when Dave shows you an example. But what the intent layer is it's using automation to ask the network a question and to understand how the network's designed to be operated to support the business, basically. So we'll go into that in more detail, and we create these network intents. We have lots of these already out of the box. We have a library, of course, but every network's different. As long as you're a network engineer, you're easily able to build these without any coding knowledge. So it's a no-code platform in its entirety. So that's the first use case, visibility and mapping. And of course, this was, to understand what you have in the network is the most important thing, how it's configured, and you use that for many things. The first thing that usually comes to mind is you refer back to a diagram or how the network is configured when you want to do some troubleshooting. So we have some automation to help with this, and fundamentally using the live representation of the network, the digital twin, it helps you to do troubleshooting by understanding how things are configured and connected. But we also have a way of automating the steps that you would take when you're troubleshooting a problem or an incident. And this is typically when an engineer would have to go and connect into a switch or a device, run some commands, get some information. Perhaps they look over to a monitoring tool, a SolarWinds or a PRTG, or whichever it may be. But they're also using ticketing systems and relaying information from one system to another. Netbrain has the ability to help automate those steps. So the troubleshooting steps, they would typically take manually at scale across the network, but also it can be triggered from different platforms. So it could be triggered from a remedy or a ServiceNow. When you have a ticket with an issue, Netbrain automatically goes and does some of the troubleshooting or does a health check, gives the engineer the information they need, decides the priority of the ticket, And we'll show some examples of this actually. So it's about reducing the time it takes to solve problems, using that underpinning digital twin. The next use case, or number 3 on this list, is change management. This is a really important one. We know from our customers that over 50% of incidents are caused by change, and there's lots of different areas at play here, including human error. So Netbrain also has the ability to apply change in a controlled manner, and again, using the digital twin to underpin the understanding of what the change needs to be, how it should be delivered, and what's the impact of the change afterwards. And we have what's called triple defense and protection. So we're doing verification checks and design checks before the change. We're looking during the change to see, are we delivering what's intended, and then confirming this afterwards with after change checks. And this, of course, all rolls up into a nice dashboard, so you can see at scale changes that are made in a controlled manner in accordance with ITIL. So that's the third use case, change. And then the fourth one that we're gonna talk to is really continuous network assessment. So this is being able to automate across the whole network assessment, and this can be for a number of different use cases. This could be assessment of your daily checks, your weekly checks. It could be service health, how you're supporting specific services. It could be vulnerability, so compliance or security checks. So we have a great way of scaling these different checks using the underlying network intents or automations we create across the visual picture of the network, so that you can adapt these in your own way to build a health check, which could be any specific compliance. It could be NIST, it could be GDPR related, it could be cyber essentials, whichever it may be. So we're going to show some examples of these. And then as we go through this, we'll briefly touch on how easy it is to use the solution, because that's always a challenge. These automation solutions are typically great at executing at scale, but being able to build the automations is the hard part. And I think Netbrain has really got this nailed on, using no code and taking an idea or something you want to achieve with automation and bringing it right through to being able to execute it at scale, document what you did, and also then visually display the results in the dashboard. So we'll give you an example of this as well. Okay, so that's over to Dave then, who's going to show you examples. So we're going to start from the top with the visibility. Let me just pass it over to you, Dave.
Thanks, Liam. So first of all, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
That is a good start. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to share my screen. So everyone should be able to see my Netbrain map. Okay. So you should see that. Could anybody let me know if you can't see that? In fact, but you should be able to see my Netbrain desktop. And so so I'm going to just quickly run through those points that Liam mentioned in the previous section. So we're going to start off with network mapping and visualization. So this is an example of this is quite a nice map. We historically call this the Henry map in honor of the guy who originally created this map. But what it shows you is how Netbrain can help you visualize your network across quite a wide range of different types of technologies. So if you think about it, this is our branch over here. Yeah, typically in your branch offices, you'll typically have this classic sort of routing and switching hardware, mainly one vendor, typically with maybe some wireless LAN controllers and stuff like that. But that will typically be going over through maybe a wide area network. So that could be MPLS. It could be a more modern type of SD-WAN. So in here, if you look at this, we've got, I think this is a Cisco SD-WAN or Viptela as it used to be. And then that's going over to a data center. And as we go over here, we can see our data center. And even if we have, say, maybe a traditional bricks and mortar data center where it's nearly all one vendor, yeah, well, actually, we'll still probably get some next generation firewalls. So we're already seeing, if you can see here, look, Checkpoint, Fortinet. So we tend to see this multi-vendor play all the time, even with quite old-fashioned types of technologies. But then actually, increasingly, we're seeing things like, as we can see here, Cisco ACI. We're also seeing, again, I've seen in quite a few of my customers, and I've seen this actually, I worked with an NHS trust some time ago, and they had NSXT. So again, see, you've got more modern types of technology mixed up with that more traditional sort of, I don't like to use the word legacy, but I can't think of a better one, legacy types of equipment. And then also what we're seeing over here is we're seeing an increasing move towards things like public cloud. So maybe Azure, Google Cloud, Yeah, again, increasingly, I'm seeing that. I'd hardly seen that in any customers until about a year or two ago, but increasingly some of my customers are talking about that now. So I'm working with quite a large pharmaceutical company at the moment who are migrating their network into Google Cloud. And also, obviously, things like the classic, the first one, really, AWS as well. So the point of all of this, if you're trying to visualize this, if you're trying to actually see, well, actually, I've got all these different types of technologies, and you're trying to decide, well, actually, maybe I've got an application running in Azure or AWS or wherever. It could just be in an SDN environment. And I'm maybe trying to consume that. It's there because I'm consuming it elsewhere, maybe in a branch or a data center, or in terms of healthcare, maybe I've got this in maybe a branch or a hospital or a small hospital or wherever. Yeah. It's because I need to get to it. And actually, if there's a problem, I need to be able to troubleshoot it and understand how does that traffic flow from one point to the next. And actually being able to visualize it like this, and notice, by the way, how we get more information as we zoom in. This is a dynamic map. So we zoom out, we get not a lot of information. But as we zoom in, we get more and more information. Yeah. So again, if I go in here, you'll see quite a bit more. Yeah, you can see information like VRFs. So trying to visualize this, there's some good point tools out there which can visualize parts of your network, but trying to get this big picture over these very large, heterogeneous, multi-vendor types of networks, that's quite tricky. And like I said, this is a dynamic map. So actually, if I wanted to look in and say, well, actually, what's going on here? Let's have a look. Let's pick a switch. Let's go in here. I want to know. Oh, my desktop's frozen. Oh, that's typical, isn't it? My tabs, my Google froze on me there. Let's try that again. If I wanted to have a look here and view the configuration file, I could just right-click it, and it will immediately show me the configuration file. Yeah, and actually, it doesn't matter. I mean, that's a Cisco device, but if I wanted to go in and have a look at a FortiGate device, I could do the same here. I could go in here, and I could maybe let's view the routing table. So it's all the same, and it's the same for public cloud as well. I mean, because at the end of the day, they're just networking components to Netbrain. So if I wanted to look at my root dependency table in AWS, I could just click it, and I've got the information like that. So it's that power to use the map, if you like, as your doorway to automation, which is so powerful, and enables you to understand how everything fits together. And then you can use it for troubleshooting. So this is something I set up. If you look at the time, I set this up whilst Liam was chatting. Yeah. So if you're troubleshooting a problem, maybe you've got a client trying to talk to a server, Netbrain can map that path for you. And this is actually quite sophisticated. It's a lot more than just a straightforward A to B path. So if I just click the firewall and go into details, you can see that Netbrain is logging into the devices. It's understanding how they are forwarding traffic. And actually, if you've got things like an ACL or which would affect that traffic, it's showing you how that ACL is actually affecting the traffic and how the routing table is routing the traffic as routing tables do. But also, better than that, I can say, well, actually, that's how it is now because I mapped that path live. What I'd quite like to do is say, well, actually, how was that at the last time Netbrain ran the digital twin? So Netbrain will automatically discover the network and build up a topology of the network, a digital twin, so like a snapshot of the network every time the benchmark runs, typically daily. So we can see here that last night, the path was like that. So if there are problems, at a glance, Netbrain can show you that. And it can troubleshoot as well. So you can say, well, network, let's do some Netbrain, let's do some automation on it. Let's run some layer 3 key checks. Let's verify, is everything on this map operating as it should do? Okay, so it's replicating what we call a network intent, which is a little piece of automation. It's replicating that into all of these devices as we speak. And all I need to do now is click run. And Netbrain now will perform some key tests, layer 3 key tests on that. So from a troubleshooting point of view, if you think about this, you can use automation to say, well, actually, a lot of the time when I have problems, I'm getting the same types of problems occurring again and again and again. And actually, sometimes on my network, I get the same type of known problems occurring. These issues just keep occurring. And I'm actually wasting time. I'm duplicating effort by performing the same troubleshooting steps all the time. So what you can do with Netbrain is automate them. So you can say, well, actually, let me just show you this in the diagnosis tree so you can get some idea. So in this case, we're doing things like we're checking the interface status. Are the interfaces up? If they're not up, check the configuration. Has somebody been messing around with the configuration? What about ACLs? You can see here, oh, it's gone red. There's an ACL issue. Yeah, what about routing? Yeah, what about my default route? All things like that. What about quality of service? So it's verifying all these standard steps. It's running commands, interpreting the commands, and then doing something else. Yeah, sometimes just making it go green or red, other times checking the interface configuration. In fact, if we look at this, we can see there's been an interface configuration change. Yeah, so we can see here, it's showing you beautifully and visually. I've got an interface down. Yeah, and actually, there it is. And the reason is because there's been a configuration change, because I can see here what the configuration should be, and I can see here what it actually is. I've got a shutdown on it, so this is wrong. So the reason we've got a problem here potentially is because somebody's been mucking around with the configuration. That's how quickly Netbrain can diagnose these problems. And in fact, even quicker. I've got to show you this. This is quite nice. What you can also do is you can say, well, actually, if I've got a trouble ticket, yeah, maybe ITSM system, ServiceNow, yeah, Jira, whatever I'm using, what I can do is I can configure that to point to Netbrain. So when somebody raises a ticket, the trouble ticket system can send an API call to Netbrain. It can contain these fields, the configuration item, the short description, the description itself, the full description. That all gets sent to Netbrain. And then Netbrain receives that, and it will do a keyword lookup. And depending on the keywords and the different fields, Netbrain can perform diagnostics, automation. Yeah. So again, think about it with your network. You do have these problems which occur again. They raise their ugly heads again and again. So Netbrain can automate that. It can look for those problems. It can really save you time. So if you look here, so I'll raise this again. This was something I raised today, just before this webinar. So if you look here, so this is what originally it was done. Yeah. Configuration item, low priority, all of that. Yeah. And you can see what I put in here. Network is down during an important webinar. Yeah. And I think the problem is OSPF. Please help. Yeah. But you can see here, Netbrain has updated this. Yeah. Incident updated from Netbrain. So it's been sent to Netbrain, and based on certain things in Netbrain, Netbrain's gone back to ServiceNow and said, this is a really important device. Change the priority to critical. And then Netbrain has performed some diagnosis on it. So it's gone here and said, look, there's a new neighbor count. It can't spell, but there's a new neighbor count for PRO1. So things have changed. Now it's got 4 OSPF neighbors, but it was 5. So you can quickly see, oh, look, neighbor state has changed. So you can see how Netbrain has actually been performing troubleshooting on this. And in fact, if I go in here, look, and I click the open in Netbrain, it can then take me into Netbrain. And if you remember, I just put one configuration item in there, PRO1. And what Netbrain has actually done is it's created a map. It's mapped out the area around PRO1 based on OSPF, the OSPF area. And it's running diagnostics, not just on this device, but on the neighboring devices as well. So moving on to the next thing, which Liam mentioned, which was protective change. Well, actually, again, with this, it's all about saying, well, actually, if I'm making a change on my network, I need to make sure that that change is successful and it hasn't had any undesirable consequences. So again, this is particularly important if you're in a healthcare industry where perhaps people are scheduling operations and things like that, and booking rooms, theatres, all of that type of stuff. Yeah, it's quite important that the network is green. Any changes have the desired effect. So for example, I had a high street bank customer of mine, and they just did some prefix list changes. But actually the prefix list changes, what they did, because they didn't use Netbrain to help, the prefix list changes caused a BGP neighbor outage. And therefore it brought the network down in a bank. That's really bad. Think about what would happen if that happened in maybe healthcare or any large company, really. That's pretty horrible. So Netbrain can help prevent those type of issues. So it can help by, before the change, performing a baseline. What's happening? What about my existing applications which depend on the devices that you're changing? Yeah. What about the routing tables on those devices? All of those type of things. Yeah. Then you hit the change. So the change is here just before, during change window. Yeah. You perform the change, and then immediately afterwards you perform some more checks. Was the change successful? So if it's a new route, does it exist in the routing table, for example? And then ongoing, if you like, after the change, was that change stable, or was there anything else that's happened? Yeah. Has it been affected by that change? Yeah. So again, key applications, have they been affected? Have they gone down or anything like that after the change? So that's the change dashboard. And then finally, and this is magic. I love this bit. Let me just close that. The final thing is network assessment. So everything I've spoken about, well, mostly, has been about maps. What about your entire network? How can you be confident that your entire network is operating as expected? Yeah. So Netbrain can verify that, and it can run that on a scheduled basis. So a quick example would be down here. Are my devices secure? Do I have Telnet enabled on them? Do I have SSH-v2 enabled? All of that type of thing. Yeah, I can verify that. And if you think about trying to verify that to do a security audit on your network without Netbrain, that will take you ages. With Netbrain, once you've configured it, you can run it every couple of hours if you want to. Yeah, and you get a nice dashboard showing you the state. Green is good, red is bad. But I think I've spoken enough for now. I'm keen now to hand you back to Liam. So thanks, Liam. I'll give you the ball.
Thanks very much, Dave. Let me just get back. So we have a few quick slides to wrap up. Let me get to the end. I hope you enjoyed the demo from Dave. Let's just summarize what we covered. So we showed you the 4 key use cases, but there's lots of other use cases that Netbrain addresses for every type of organization. Just wanted to touch on a couple of examples quickly, and then we'll go to some questions and answers and next steps. So from visibility perspective, I'm just going to use an example of a large healthcare provider. They had 29 hospitals and they had over 300 different outpatient type sites as well. On the visibility side, this is really where they started with Netbrain, and what they were trying to achieve was to keep their network documentation up to date. So they didn't have accurate Visio diagrams. Things change over years, which we know. And this, when they were building for these 29 hospitals, which are obviously the key sites, it was taking them between 4 and 10 hours for each hospital to just draw these diagrams. So there's multiple people involved in this, and when they did this with Netbrain, this was reduced to hours. So just from a visibility perspective, you know, the amount of time that it takes to build these maps and keep them up to date and document the network, you know, it's invaluable. On the troubleshooting side, there's lots of different ways that Netbrain can help via automation troubleshooting, but one of the great things that we offer is a self-service kind of portal. So it means that engineers have got the ability to use automation to just run health checks or diagnostics at scale at their fingertips. So it could even be triggered automatically, as Dave mentioned, by the tickets. But this just helps them to get to the root cause of a problem really quickly when it's critical in a hospital, as you know. And then on change, so just deploying changes is a challenge in a network. But also documenting this. So there's an example where they were trying to update the OS on around 1,000 devices, and this was taking them over 100 hours. And using Netbrain, they're able to get this down. It took about 4 or 5 engineers 100 hours to do this change. And once they started using Netbrain, they had one person do it basically within 4 hours. So there's a massive difference there, and the change is more accurate, of course, because there's no room for human error. It was also integrated into their change workflows. So there's lots of use cases we could talk about, and we're happy to go into more detail. We're running very short on time, so let me just summarize on the next steps then. So the prize draw, we will announce the winner by email. They'll be contacted after the webinar. We also have a healthcare solution page and case study and a solution brief, which we can share with you. So we'll share the links to these afterwards. And we're very happy to schedule a more detailed demo. I appreciate that was a lot of information to take in very quickly from Dave. He had to try and get quite a few things in there. And then we also have an ongoing incentive for partners, right? So that we have a £100 Amazon voucher for the first 5 people to register 3 deals. We have a portal to do this, so Prianto can help you register these deals. You can reach out directly to us. We'll send you some contact details to do this afterwards if you don't have them. So to qualify, really, this is to have a meeting with the end customer, with Netbrain, and agree there's some opportunity there. But we're really keen to help you, and we can talk to some pretty specific use cases and experiences we've had in this sector with you. So we'll share all this information, and thank you very much for listening. I just wanted to ask then if you have any questions. So if you do have any questions, you can pop them in the Q&A, and I'll do my level best to answer them right away. And if I can't, we'll take them away and share all the answers afterwards. So if you want to pop them in the chat, that would be great. Okay, yeah, couple of questions coming in. I didn't quite see those there. So the recording going to be available. I believe the recording will be available. So we will share this. How does Netbrain handle privileged credentials of the accesses? Well, we do this so we have an encrypted database internally. So there's a way of inputting the credentials, or you can connect to a third-party tool to do this. We can go into more detail if you want to see how this is done. How is a solution licensed was another question. So this is per network device. So think router, switch, firewall, load balancer. For cloud and other technologies, we have a ratio. For example, for a VNet or a VPC, it consumes 16 device licenses. For a wireless controller, it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So one license is 3. So there's a couple of ins and outs there, the licensing, but think of it as core to being per device. And there's also a second part to the license side, which means there's a user license. So this is a concurrent seat license, we call this. And this means admins that log in and administer the Netbrain platform. So that's the high level, the licensing model. Happy to go into more detail in further sessions. And it looks like that's all the questions, but please, if you have any questions or you want to schedule a demo or more of a conversation around some other challenges that we could potentially address, or some challenges you have with customers, we're happy to schedule this. So please reach out to us. Okay, one last question. We'll go for this and then I think we'll wrap up. Do you offer a project type license for integrators? Yeah, that's a good question. So actually we do. We didn't get time to touch on this, but we have what's called an assessment license for partners, which is invaluable really. So you can use Netbrain to go and audit your customers or give them information about their network. So as a consultative type approach, you can do a network assessment, you can provide them with information, and this has got many use cases in its own actually. You could use this for cloud migrations, it could be for service migrations, it could be network refreshes, it could be understanding service dependencies. So yes, we have this for partners, it's available. It's actually called the ACE license, which is free for partners. And we can go into more detail than a separate session for this. Okay, well, I appreciate everybody staying on. I know we've run over a little, but again, thanks all for joining, and we'll send a follow-up email with more information. And if you want to reach out one-to-one and have a session or involve your customers, and don't forget about the incentive, we'll let the lucky winner know. Okay. Thanks, everybody, and enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.